So my name's Lindsey and I'm the Young Persons Education Lead for ARA. So ARA are a charity basically providing support for housing. So for substance misuse clients, we run a housing service and we also run a gambling harm service. So anyone struggling with gambling addiction, also, substance misuse addiction can come to our service. I'm based down in Devon and Cornwall. I've got 2 colleagues in Wales who would usually deliver the session. So we've got Rob Parker, who's in Barry, and Mark Skinner in North Wales. So I think you've got Rob's contact details anyway, but any questions after the session, you can contact myself or you can contact Rob. So this is about half an hour and it's gambling harm prevention awareness training. We run full CPD accredited training, which is an hour and a half. Which you're welcome to join. Rob runs lots of sessions in Wales, so if you are interested, do let me know. Okay, so let's start off with definition of gambling. So our actual definition is to stake or risk money or anything of value on the outcome of something involving chance. So when we work with young people, we always ask them this. So we go into schools, we go into colleges, universities, youth groups, football clubs, sports clubs, any group really, any organisation where there are young people. We go into those organisations, we train the staff and we train we run awareness sessions with young people around basically what is risk, what is chance, and they don't always know. I had sessions with year 9s yesterday and I always ask them, who can tell me what chance means, and it's not automatic for them. They don't all the time, they don't know. Year 7s and 8s usually don't know. They're starting to learn what risk is, what chance is, what's safe, what's unsafe. The issue now these days is that there are so many elements of risk and chance on the internet, not just gambling, but in many, many ways, covering, social media, trading, cryptocurrency, lots of different things really. So I will touch upon that. But it's stake or risk money, anything of value. It doesn't have to be money. People automatically talk about money. It can be, for example, in prisons, people gamble anything of value to them. They don't have access to money. It could be phones, it could be food, it could be drugs, toothpaste, even anything that's of value to them. And it's on the outcome of something involving chance. So we really just try and break it down and say, if there's anything, even if it's the smallest element of chance, you don't know what's going to happen, even if you're 100% sure that your football team's going to win, everything about the team, everything about the managers, there is still always a chance. If there's not a chance, it's not gambling. And do stop me if you've got any questions as I'm going through this as well. So if it's about the law, you've got to be 18 years old to gamble in adult gaming centres, betting shops, bingo halls, casinos, racetracks and online gambling. Online gambling is massive now these days, makes up nearly half of all gambling. The one thing that's changed online gambling, is smartphones. So basically, in the past 10 years, you've been able to just have the internet on you all the time, wherever you are, work, out with the pub, in the pub with your friends, having a meal. People can place bets at any time of the day on, as many different sites as they want. So the internet and smartphones has changed the game really with how we access gambling. You now have to be 18 years old to gamble on the National Lottery and scratch cards. This changed last month. It was 16, it's now gone up to 18. And that's just to protect younger people, basically. There are so many National Lottery products these days. So just to raise that age a little bit and to, prevent people from basically being addicted to these kinds of products at a younger age. There are things called Category D machines. It's really important to mention these because it's very accepted here, it's very normalised, it is legal. We gamble from very young ages without realising it. Category D machines are things like penny pushers, crane grabbers, all of those sort of fun arcade machines. They are regulated by the Gambling Commission, but there's no minimum age, so a child of any age can play those games. Obviously seen as fun, seen as safe, majority of the time they are, but it is still gambling. Problem gambling is an urge to gamble continuously despite harmful consequences or a desire to stop. So we're not here to tell people not to gamble. We can't do that. You know, it is legal in the UK most of the time over the age of 18, but there's a really, really risky way to gamble. And obviously, you know a lot about addiction. I'll talk a bit about the brain and what happens when you gamble. But basically, when it goes from fun and safe to harmful, it can become very harmful very, very quickly. People have a desire to stop. They really want to stop. They find it hard to stop, basically. Okay, so I just want to talk about, and sorry if I'm going quite quickly through the slides, but it's quite a bit on gaming that I want to cover in this half an hour. So let's look at how young people are gambling. So what percentage of young people aged 11 to 16 spend their own money on a gambling activity in the past 7 days? What do you all think? If you'll need to chat maybe for this. Out of these 4 options, what do you think? We got 5%, 6%, 11% and 16%.
11.
11. Okay, we've got 1 11, 2 11s. Any other guesses? Give you 5 seconds. Okay, brilliant. So a few of you got it right. It's 11%. These figures are a bit outdated. It would have risen. This was 2019, obviously prevented by COVID, but it's quite high compared to tobacco at 6%, alcohol at 16%, and drugs at 5%. Obviously, you might have some different data on this, and if you do, you know, especially with the alcohol and the drugs, feel free to send it over because, as I said, they are a couple of years out of date. But quite a big activity, and that's why we go into schools. It is on the PSHE curriculum, so that's in England, but you got something similar in Wales. It is on the curriculum where you have to cover gambling now in schools, as the same as you do with, you know, substance misuse, abuse online, bullying, things like that. So that's why we are running these, you know, these awareness sessions, and our programme is expanded massively in the past year and a half. We've gone from about 4 officers to about 40 all over the UK to cover this, really, to try and raise the awareness, because it's known as a very hidden addiction. It's known as secretive. It's very hard to spot sometimes, but as we can see from these figures, it is a big activity for young people. Okay, second one, how many young people 11 to 16 are estimated to have a problem with gambling? 6,400, 61,000, 12,700 or 87,000? Okay, we've got 61, we got 12, 61. Okay, looks like it's between those two. Great, let's have a look. So yeah, well done, 61,000. That's risen from 25,000 in 2017, 55,000 in 2019, and now 61,000. That 87,000 is really, really important. At risk. So we've got probably about 2.4 million adults at risk in the UK of becoming harmed. Okay, so they're starting to do things that are unsafe, which I will cover in a minute, and we've got 87,000 at risk young people. So at risk is the stage where people start lying about what they're doing. They're starting to feel ashamed. They're starting to push their spending and time limits with gambling, and that at risk sort of column is when we want to get people talking. At the moment, they don't talk until they're addicted. They're being harmed in some way by their gambling. And compared obviously to cannabis, and then alcohol at 6,400. So, you know, a lot of young people. We've got about half of the population gamble on a regular basis. About half of those play the National Lottery. So, you know, National Lottery is really popular, followed by sports betting, mainly football, and then the horses. Okay, before I move on to gaming and gambling, are there any questions? You can ask me questions at the end as well. Okay, brilliant. So we talk a lot about gaming and gambling. Does anyone know what this is? If you do, can you unmute and tell me? Anyone?
Isn't it a box on a game where you get the stuff inside?
That's it. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, it's a loot box, a loot crate. 99% of adults we speak to don't have a clue what this is. If you're not a gamer, you won't know. But basically, in online games under the age of 18 and over the age of 18, you have these items that you can buy in the game. The problem is you don't know what you're going to get for some of them. Okay. Basically, you've got your real world money, you've got your virtual currency, which you buy with your real world money. With your virtual currency, you have the option to open these loot crates. When you open them, you get something that will help your game playing, or you'll get like a status symbol called a skin, which basically changes the way your gun looks or changes the way your character looks. The reason why we're talking about this is because it's not at the moment regulated as gambling. The Gambling Act was created in 2005. It's basically outdated. It doesn't cover the digital age. It doesn't cover social media. It doesn't cover the internet. It doesn't cover gaming. So you've got lots of aspects of gambling in games, but it won't be labelled as gambling. So parents won't know and children won't know that it is gambling. So you've got 55% of 11 to 16-year-olds have heard of in-game items. 44% have paid their own money for items within the game. 6% have done something called skins betting. Skins betting is quite a complicated process if you're not a gamer, if you don't understand how games work. But basically, when you've opened your loot box and you've got a skin, which is quite a valuable skin, okay, some of them can be worth up to 30 grand. You open your loot box, you're actually able to gamble with those skins if you know how, and a lot of young people do. The main game for this is CSGO, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, where they've got casinos in the game. You're able to communicate with other websites through that game, basically. So you're basically able to take your valuable skin outside of the game through a platform called Steam. So Steam is regulated, it's fine, you know, it's a gaming website, but it does let you communicate with other websites, and these other websites aren't based in the UK, and it allows you to gamble with your skins. And a lot of young people know how to do this, basically, and a lot of professionals and adults don't understand that, you know, it's even available and it's a process. So there's not one person to be regulated here. It's a bit of an ecosystem of the original game, Steam, and then, you know, these websites that are based outside the UK. So yeah, there's skins gambling, which is just free-for-all gambling, really, and then there's the original process of the loot box, opening the loot box, that element of chance. Okay, this is what it looks like when you gamble with your skins on sort of a roulette kind of website. I think this is called Kings something, can't remember, but again, not necessarily based in the UK. Easy to click a button saying yes, I'm over 18. Very easy, you know, for sort of 13, 14-year-olds to gamble on these sites. I'm trying to move it on, but I don't know if you guys can see anything that's happening there. It should be moving across the top. Right, I think that was start. But yeah, basically it's just roulette, really. Okay, but at the moment, because the law doesn't cover these kinds of sites, and even when our law does, you know, there are still so many sites, offshore sites, that allow you to gamble, really. So skins gambling is something to look out for. If you've got any young people who talk about that, who mention it, skins trading, that kind of thing, then we're always here basically to talk to you about it. So some facts around this: 90% regularly play video games who are younger. 27% have heard of skins gambling. 29% think it's a problem. 10% have gambled skins. 36% have gone on to gamble skins. So in my year 9 classes, so they're 14, there's at least one boy in every class who plays, you know, Counter-Strike Global Offensive or GTA or something like that, and they know about this process. So I'd say at least one pupil in every sort of school class. So, is it dangerous? It's not legally classed as gambling. The law doesn't cover it. There are no age restrictions at the moment. The law is changing next year, and there will be some changes on this. Allows multiple bets to be placed very quickly. Participants can potentially win large sums of money. Digital goods casinos often contain these chat rooms, and you can gain extra chips by referring friends to sites. Okay, so lots of ways it can be a risky process for young people. So this is called esports in this slide. So esports is something that is massive with young people. People watch other people gaming these days. They don't just play the game. You know, you go onto YouTube or Twitch, you can always watch a live game. Esports is when professional gamers play against each other. But the problem with this is it's aimed at young people, it's marketed on social media towards young people, but all of the, you know, the massive sites, Paddy Power, Bet365, William Hill, they all provide odds now. They offer odds on esports. So it's an activity for younger people, and the gambling sort of culture with it is getting quite big. So it all changed basically when computers started to become more powerful in 2000. Webcams, you know, were cheaper, and people started really via YouTube to just stream, you know, to film themselves. If you go onto YouTube now, on the left hand side, you can watch, you know, hundreds, thousands of games being played live by these YouTubers and influencers. So what are the risks? We've got financial harm. A small amount of young people buying these loot boxes will buy them a lot, and it will account for up to half of the total industry value. A third to a half fell into problem gambler category, and there's psychological harm as well. Young people are particularly at risk with this. So I always ask young people, are they gambling? Some of them still, they're not sure. Okay. I always say to them, is there an element of chance? Yes. If there's an element of chance, it is gambling. So staking or risking money, that's your virtual currency, which you've bought, or, you know, a Steam voucher that someone's given you for a birthday or something like that, on the value of something involving chance. So lots of games provide these loot boxes for free. You have to play to get them. We do now say to young people, if you're spending a lot of your valuable time, so time is spent is something of value to you. If you're spending 8 hours a day online trying to open something of chance, you are still taking a gamble that can still affect you in a negative way. So I'm going to show you a video now. It's about skins betting, and it's basically the opinions of some young people who have gone through that process. So has anyone had an experience of this, or young people who have talked about this?
Yeah, I get it quite often.
Do you? With people you work with?
Yeah. And they'd pay their rent, and then whenever they had left over, they'd just go and spend it on skins or updating their games, and then they would go to food banks and get their food rather than so they could use their money.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah,
youngsters do it though. It's on like Roblox and stuff. It's just like even the younger games, they can open boxes, they can trade animals which they've paid money for, loads of stuff like that, isn't it?
I think Roblox is one of the worst ones for the younger ones, actually. I don't think Minecraft and things like that have loot boxes or options, but there are, whether it's trading, whether it's, I even had a boy yesterday who there was no chance involved, but his skin was worth a lot of money and he was trying to sell it. So I was trying to say to him, look, 150 quid, you know, for a 14-year-old is a lot of money. And it's just understanding the value of money when you have access to these things all the time online. So, I mean, we do gaming presentations as well, where we go a lot more into this, also in our CPD accredited training, and there's not time today, but there are so many other things that we do cover. But yeah, the main thing really is just to look out for these terms: skins, gambling, trading, cryptocurrency, loot boxes, you know, people talking about valuable skins, because trying to raise sort of awareness, you know, this is the first step of it really, but there's nothing to safeguard young people at the moment. There's nothing to keep them safe, you know, because the law doesn't cover it at the moment. So thanks for that. Okay, so what are the signs? What are the signs of gambling? It's known as very secretive. There's a bit of a difference between noticing if someone's addicted to drugs or alcohol, smoking. A lot of the time there are physical effects of that. For gambling, these are lesser. There are behavioural sort of indications sometimes if people become you know, violent or aggressive when they're trying to cut down, but a lot of the time it is hard to spot. So we use something called the Gambling Continuum. People are allowed to gamble if they want to. The safest way to do it is for fun, for entertainment, never ever by yourself. This is why it's really tricky. With online gambling, it's set up to do it as a solitary, you know, activity, and always stick to spending and time limits. So you can say to a young person, you want to go down the arcade, you know, that's fine, you can do that. You want to buy a loot box, you spend £5, but you've lost that £5, you're not going to get it back again. You've had fun with your friends, but you can't keep on playing trying to win that money back. Okay, you're more likely to lose than you are to win. This is the really important stage. This is at risk. So we want to get people talking at this point, really. This is when people try and chase their losses. So it's trying to win back the money that you've lost. A lot of gamblers will do that. You know, risky territory, because once you try and win that money back, it gets into your head. You know, you're never going to win that money back. You're always going to spend more money than you win. Okay, and if you're lucky you win, that's fine, but just don't put it back into the game. People start to overspend, and the key one really is lying. So at this stage people conceal what they're doing. They might be borrowing money, they might be thinking about stealing money, they might be concealing it from their family and friends. They start to feel guilty and they start to feel ashamed, and these are really dangerous emotions, you know, because people then start hiding it even more. Okay, and then they get to, unfortunately, a crisis point, which is when they have to seek help because they either try and harm themselves or someone finds out about debt. So severe problem gambling, when people might be in debt, they commit crime. They always think about it. So people have their smartphones on them all the time. They're placing bets all the time, you know, but it looks like they're just doing something on their phone. So we don't generally ask what people are doing on their phones. So it's so easy to do this all the time if you feel you need to. Risking relationships and also suicide, also people taking their own lives. So at least at the moment it's probably about one person a day, we think, but it's hard to get an actual number because, again, because of the law. So very risky activity if you are sort of in this severe problem gambling. category. And what happens is people just, especially if they're in recovery from it, they've been through the addiction, and they relapse and they start gambling again, and they just think, I can't put my family through it again. That's often why people feel there's no way out and they decide to try and take their own life. So particular risk factors for young people: males within the ages of 24 and 35 are most at risk of being a problem gambler. Ethnicity, so non-white ethnicities are of a younger age. There's some research to say that they are more at risk. There's more research that needs to be done on that. Coping styles, bad coping styles, trauma in their life, risk takers, mental health, so people basically wanting to escape elements of life, okay, maybe being anxious and depressed, turning to gambling to try and escape that. And the main one really is early exposure, so young people who are exposed to gambling activity through their parents are more likely to go on and gamble when they're older. Some impacts, so mental health is an impact as well, so people start gambling too much, okay, it's having an effect on them emotionally. We've got about half of all problem gamblers are suffering with mental health issues as well. Relationships, people fighting in their family, not going to school, not turning up to school, being tired at school, similar with gaming disorder, and comorbidity, so alcohol, substance misuse, and then gambling, and then drinking more, taking more drugs, and that really hard cycle to get out of. And then crime, so people stealing, you know, from work, stealing from school, or stealing from family and friends. Okay, so basically, go back on there. How do we identify? How do we give some brief advice and have a chat with someone and signpost to our free services? So you see a warning sign, you just want to initiate it, the conversation. You need to add it to your referral forms, your assessment forms, people coming into the service. Just add that question about gambling. Are you worried about someone else's gambling? Are you worried about your own gambling? So we've got brief advice. Options are you can pass on resources from our website. That's ARA or GamCare. You can book into an education workshop, so you can book young people into a free workshop with your education lead in Wales, and safer gambling tips. So basically have a conversation with them. And that's basically something we cover in the CPD training, but how to basically have sort of a 20-minute conversation with a young person. There's something as well called self-exclusion, which is a really, really good option. And it basically prevents you from seeing anything to do with gambling on any device, and it's free through the National Gambling Helpline. The Young People Support Service is for young people 11 to 18 years. It's run by GamCare. Basically, you can refer within 24 hours that young person is contacted by a practitioner, and family and carers can be involved with permission, and then an aftercare plan put in place as well. That's our Young People Support Service, but I will just send this all around to you so you've got the information. For you in Wales, you've got ARA. So ARA are the local support service for anyone over 16, and we provide support for gaming addiction as well. So it's gambling addiction and gaming addiction. And I just want to just briefly mention about the brain, because I didn't cover that in the first part, but the reason people start gambling too much is because, I'm sure you know about this in your line of work, but we get this influx of dopamine into our brains when you think you're going to take a risk or you could possibly get something good. So it's the same with social media. You're waiting to see someone's stories. So if someone's liked your story, watched your story, you know, liked your picture, whatever. Similar with gambling, you're waiting to see if you win. If you nearly win, you get a hit of dopamine. If you win, you get a hit of dopamine. But what happens when you gamble too much is the dopamine receptors in your brain become blunted, and then people basically have to gamble more and more to get that fix of dopamine, basically to get that happy feeling. So sorry, it's a very whistle-stop tour. Those are our details there on the slide. Are there any questions?
Lisa has a question about the previous slide saying about ethnicity. I can't even say it, sorry.
There's a couple of research papers looking into how certain groups of young people and their non-white ethnicities are more at risk. So I'll have a further look, but there's not enough research out there at the moment, but there's certain factors involved. But if you want, I can just have a look and send you on some information.
Okay, thank you. Has anybody else got any other questions briefly?
I've just seen someone's comment. My sister is like that when she plays bingo online. She's got into debt. Yeah, so if she wants to contact the help service, so she can either ring National Gambling Helpline, or she can call ARA, or she can do an online form through ARA, so she doesn't have to call up. But they will help you manage debt. You know, and for women particularly, bingo, games of chance are really popular. For men's gambling, it's more strategic gambling. But yeah, bingo, and you know, so many adverts talk about selling this life, this glamorous life. Join our bingo online site. You know, you'll have loads of friends drinking champagne, things like that. So it's marketed in a really, really clever way. But yeah, basically, I'll send you all the information. But if you want to give us a call about that, Leanne, definitely do that.
Okay, we'll be sharing the slides from Lindsey a little bit later. In the meantime, Lindsey, thank you. Let's move on then now to Catherine Smith from NGage. Catherine.
Hi, my I don't know if my camera's working again now, because it was. Is that on now?
It's not, no.
Yeah,
there's been issues with one of the teams. There we are. There you are.
I am I?
You're on now, yeah.
Oh, I can't see myself. Right, so I'm going to share my slides. It's more about what we do as a service. We cover the whole of Gwent. So if I can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see? Am I down the bottom? Can you see me?
Yes, you are.
I can't see anything on my screen. It's completely blank. I can literally just see myself at the bottom, and that's it. So I work for Gwent Engage, and we are a young person's drug and alcohol service. Hang on, let me see if I can. No, that's gone really funny. Oh my god. Sorry. Don't know why it's gone. Oh, there, I'll just do it like that. Who are we? So we are a Gwent-wide integrated service. We're called Barod as well, if anyone's ever heard of us. We have complex substance misuse workers, which are one-to-one workers. We've got SCAMS workers, who are mental health nurses, and we have YOS workers within our service. We work with young people who are at risk of using or are using substances, concerned others, which potentially could be family or friends or anyone that's in their circle, and we work with professionals. So next slide. So like I said, we cover the whole of Gwent. We've got different teams covering each one, but even though it says that there's so ever many caseworkers in one area, this slide is a bit confusing because it's just who's under that team manager rather than who's in that area. So we've got 3 family support workers, it says in Caerphilly, but it means that we've got 3 under the Caerphilly lead manager, and they all cover the whole of Gwent. Then these are our CAMS workers, who are, so you've got like 3 full-time psychiatric nurses, you've got a consultant psychiatric nurse, and a full-time social worker. So to get into our service, potentially you may be working with someone or a young person who's using a substance. So anyone can refer. We get a lot of our referrals through schools, but anyone can refer, parent, caregiver, anything like that. We've got one single point of contact, which is Tracy. There isn't like a million different telephone numbers for our service. We've just got one number. Obviously, we've got our individual numbers, which I can give you at the end, and individual emails, but for referrals and stuff, it just goes through one. You can do it via phone, email or post. We sit on the space and wellbeing panels too, which can be really beneficial for us, because if any young people come through there's like social workers, youth workers, police are on there, and they can get distributed to whoever's needed, and we get to know any of the young people that need help. And we've got the crisis liaison team as well. They have to want to be in our service. They can't just be referred. They have to want to work with us, because you literally can't do any work with anyone if they don't want to do it. So they've got to be ready and they've got to be willing. Referral process, they go into a meeting every Wednesday, which is called a joint allocation meeting, and they get dispersed to each team depending on who wants to, who needs to be seen. So then it is identified then for which appropriate strand is needed. So whether they need to be seen just briefly by one-to-one worker, or if they need to be seen specifically by a CAMS worker. They have an initial risk assessment done, and then there's a range menu of different options of treatment options. So our specialist one-to-one workers, they can offer brief interventions, a structured treatment, so that can be something specific like CBD or motivational interviewing, positive engagement, multi-agency working and signposting, so they potentially work with other like social services, police, and the other advocacy, so if they need to attend any appointments with them, they can do that. And they're usually seen in wherever they want to be seen. So if their parents don't need to know about the referral, so they can be seen in school, they can be seen at McDonald's, they can be just seen anywhere where they want to be seen, rather than us visiting their house, or they having to come to an office, which we find quite limiting, and they don't really want to be labelled. So our CAMS workers are very complex. So they can deal with significant drug use. So if they're using a lot of a certain substance, like I've got one who's using, a 14-year-old who's using really high amounts of ketamine. So he would go straight to complex because of the type of drug he's using, the age he is, and the amount he's using. They deal with the significant mental health concerns. So if you've got an undiagnosed or diagnosed mental health problem, if they're reporting any self-harm or suicidal thoughts, any physical health concerns, like so if they're pregnant, or if they need to be any urine analysis. They also can prescribe drugs. So if they're on certain medication and they need to be reduced, so they can offer a reduction plan, or like withdrawal from alcohol, they can offer that too. And they work with pregnant young people as well. So if they're using substances while pregnant, and they can do dry blood spot testing too. So it's always a bonus. Within our service as well, we've got transition and young adult workers. Anytime you've got a question, I can't see the chat, so if anyone wants to, if you want to say anything on there, you'll have to maybe unmute yourself, sorry. Our transition and young adult worker, we've got two of them that cover the whole of Gwent, and they work up to 21. We found that a lot of young people, as soon as they hit 18, were just being dropped by all services, so social services, they would just drop in them at 18, and they were really struggling, because we found that not a lot of our 18-year-olds are actually 18 in, what's the word? They're not physically ready to be an adult yet. So they were struggling to go from a young person's very relaxed service straight into an adult service, which is very regimented, 3 strikes and you're out, having to attend an office for certain appointments, being around a lot of high dependency drug users as well. So yeah, they've started now on the 1st of April. So, and they've been doing a lot of work with this transition, and I think a lot of young people have found it really, really good. And they assess their needs and identify goals. They have a structured treatment, the same as the one-to-one workers, is flexible, and they joint work with GDAS, which is the Adults Drug and Alcohol Service. We have activities and wellbeing team within our service as well. So they do joint work with one-to-one workers. They sometimes can be like an aftercare service. If they've done their work with their one-to-one, they can come and do that. So they would do diversionary activities around, like maybe going to the gym, certain life skills, arts and crafts, music. We usually find that these young people are ones that may have done something previous, so they may have been on a football team, and then drugs have kind of like taken over, so they've stopped, but they really enjoy it, so they may want to go back to it. Or if they use it at a certain time of the day or evening, they may go to the gym that time instead, to just try and divert away from their drug use. And then we have a family support team, so these work with families with young and young people. So if you've got a one-to-one concerned others support who are under 18s, and they can work with the parent or carer too. So if you've got a brother, sister, friend, family member that's using substances and they need support, or the other way around as well, if the parents and caregivers need support, they can put in like a brief intervention, or they could do like a full-on course with them. There's a menu of treatments and stuff, different options. They obviously offer multi-agency working as well, and advocacy. This is my job, so I'm an engagement worker. I deal with the social media. I work in certain community groups, LGBTQ, lots of different, so schools, youth centres, workshops and awareness raising. So I go a lot in schools. So my main job at the moment, as well as doing this sort of thing, is to work and deliver workshops around substance misuse in schools. Some schools are good at allowing this in, and some schools aren't. It's been a really hard slog at the minute because of COVID, and some schools being a bit more reluctant to having external staff in, which is obviously understandable, but some still have us in, which is really good. I go to events and do like stands, campaigns, outreach. At the minute I'm doing outreach in Abergavenny a lot, which they've got a lot of issues, and networking, so going on and talking to lots of other agencies and see what we could do together. Last but not least, I know you'll probably be bored of my voice. So we do training as well, so it's all free. We do free professional training packages. A few of them are like talking to and working with, how to talk to young people. You've got to do the talking to go with the working with. So working with's all about the mind. They do alcohol awareness, new psychoactive substances, which is the old legal high drugs, social media and drugs, and they got a new one which is drugs and mental health and wellbeing. There is also a new one which isn't added on here, which is around families. But all these can be bespoke to, like, so if you've got a team that want a workshop, they can run the workshop just for that team rather than booking on, because it is a booking system. They allow anyone from Gwent to attend. And they offer consultancy and accredited courses for young people. So like I said, all of these are free. They're all online, and I can always forward the plan of like the times and the workshops that are running on, so you guys can book on if you wanted to. So in a nutshell, our key principles are harm reduction. So we're not there to go and tell young people don't do drugs, because they do. It's just like saying to someone, don't press that red button. They're inquisitive. They want to see what that red button does. We're pretty flexible, so we, like I say, we go to them and try and see them where they want to be seen. We're responsive to their needs and of our service users. We work as a team, which is really good. So we've got a few staff from each, so like one-to-one workers, we've got 3 engagement workers, so we can work together if we have a big job. We do a lot of multi-agency working, and our safeguarding is the main thing for us. So like I said, this is my main contact details here. So I'm Catherine Smith, an engagement worker, which my email's on there, and my personal works phone. Sarah Walsh is our service manager. Sally Winterflood is the complex one, so she works for the NHS. And Tracy Card is our SPOC, so she is our single point of contact. And